Hello and welcome to a random episode. I don't know if it's random, but an intermediary episode of Slice and Dice, where we're gonna. I This is in response to a comment on my first Slice and Dice video on my YouTube channel. Since this game is not extremely popular, um, people might be interested in watching the playthrough who haven't seen the game before. So this is a short video I'm going to do in an effort to help explain kind of the UI mechanics of the game. I feel like a lot of the gameplay mechanics are intuitive once you understand the UI of the game, the interface. Which, by the way, this game is wonderful. It's extremely well designed. The art style fits. The length of the roguelike is effective. So let's just start with that fact. So we're gonna do an easy run to explain this. We're gonna play in classic mode because that's what my unfair runs on YouTube have been. So this is going to be an effort to explain just the mechanics of the game and what you're looking at, especially for the portions when maybe I go too quickly or I don't mouse over the things that I should that are effective for you to understand everything that I understand. So roguelike meaning that you have serially generated rooms, like, it's like a dungeon that we're going through, and we're going to face 20 waves of enemies to try and defeat the final boss. And we have a party of 5 people who each get to roll a die. They have a die with 6 sides on it, and every side can do things like deal damage to your opponents, um, restore life to your team, block for your team, block incoming damage, and gain mana. Mana can be spent on spells, and there are some spells that you always have available to you, and we'll get into that in a sec. But that's the basic mechanics. Those are the gameplay mechanics. Those are pretty straightforward. I think less intuitive is the interface mechanics. When I was first introduced to this game, I was watching it kind of co-oping with a friend, and because I couldn't choose to mouse over the things that I didn't know what they were doing, I also felt pretty lost. So hopefully this is in an effort to alleviate that. So you can right click on anything to get more information about it. So if you right click on the enemies, you get to see their health total, what the possible sides they can roll are. Every pip or white mark, it's a little white horizontal mark, they're called pips in this game, represent just how much that thing does. So typically damage is what the enemies are doing. So we've got 3 damage, 4 damage, 4 damage, 1 damage. Now, the reason this is 1 damage is because it also has a keyword. But we'll get into keywords in a sec, just kind of talking about the mouse over and the interface. So you run into enemies, you can mouse over them. You have your team, who you can mouse over their sides and see what exactly their sides do. The more pips they have, the more things they do. At the beginning of my unfair runs, when I'm looking at a screen like this, I'm actually choosing debuffs that I have to deal with. Things like enemies dealing more damage, things like you having less health. Because I'm doing easy, just to kind of showcase some of the mechanics of this game, these are actually bonuses. I'm not choosing a curse here. I'm choosing something that is going to be beneficial to me. Turn 5. During the 5th turn, plus 3 dial. That's terrible. Self-shield to the middle side. That's fine. Start 3 times random if you want to. I like this one. We'll just take this. So then, every other level, you either upgrade a hero, and there are 3 tiers of heroes, so you can upgrade them twice, and you have 5 characters, so you get a total of 10 upgrades over the course of the run, which is half of the 20 levels, and then 9 items. 10 upgrades, 9 item choices. You have 20 levels, but you don't get to choose anything on level 1. I guess you get to choose your curses and or bonuses like we did here. If you ever hit inventory, you get to see your whole party at once. These are the items that I just gained. I can look at them in a moment. I can hold them down to look at what they do. But let's talk about, so an X, if you roll an X, you don't get to do anything with that character, which is too bad. We can talk about keywords now, just what we're looking at here. There are a lot of keywords, so I think it's a little bit fruitless to try and explain every keyword that's possible, but some of the more common ones are here. So you've got ranged and poison. So ranged can target enemies in the back row, so sometimes there's an enemy where the front side of the enemy right here is like a little bit farther back, so you can't target it because it's too far away. So ranged lets you target enemies in the back row. It also ignores on-hit passives. So sometimes an enemy does something to you when you hit them. Maybe they have thorns and stuff like that. And ranged gets to ignore that. So that's ranged. That's pretty common. There's also poison, which does mostly what you think it would do. It deals damage at the end of the turn. The end of the turn means the end of the enemy's turn, so the enemy does get to attack on the turn that they die to poison. So that's something to watch out for, but it's at the end of every turn. So it's a classic poison style. It doesn't reduce from turn to turn like poison does in some games, like Slay the Spire, which I play a lot of. Then there's cruel. This is actually not a terribly common keyword. I don't know, there are probably like 3 commonalities of keywords. Ranged is extremely common, heavy is extremely common, cleave is extremely common. There are a few more. I would say cruel is in the tier 2 as far as commonality. It's like it's not incredibly rare, but it's not incredibly common. It's right in the middle. So cruel just does 2 times damage to targets on half or less HP. So for some of these small enemies, cruel doesn't do a whole lot because you have to get them down to 3 life before cruel is active, and then like your daggers are almost killing them at their base damage anyway. So cruel is a lot better against bosses, I would say. And then there's this little cloud that dodges all attacks. This is not a keyword, it's just a special ability. So there's some side faces in the game that just are unique to that side face. Let's look for another example. Maybe there aren't that many, but just like, oh yeah, stun. So like, this isn't a keyword, this is just like a specific side that does a specific thing. So it just describes it to you right here. It stuns an enemy with equal or less HP than you. And by stun, it means the enemy doesn't get to do the attack they were intending to do. The attack being shown on this little square here. I haven't started yet, so if I start, I didn't equip my items, but it's not a huge thing. You can see what the attack is telling you it's going to do. So here's the big UI discrepancy that I never picked up on when I was first watching this game, was this color right here tells you who they are attacking. So rather than having to mouse over them specifically to see who they're attacking, I just automatically know that Wolf is killing Lost, and he's overkilling him by 1. So if your hero's flashing, it means they're going to die. The yellow pips are the damage they're about to take, and then any plus number here is how much overkill is happening to them. Which means I need to block Lost for at least 2 shield to save them, or kill the wolf that's attacking Lost. So that's kind of just the quick reference when you're doing decision making during a turn, when you're trying to figure out what's happening, is the colors on the enemies, the yellow health points on your team, and any of the numbers there to say how much they're overkilling you by. But we can get back into talking about keywords. So we talked about cruel on Lost. Let's talk about the brigand. This is a bad keyword, exert. It's this big, I don't know, it's just a bigger sword, just gigantic looking sword. It has the keyword exert. Keyword exert means that you have to skip your next turn, basically. When this is technically a keyword, which I've actually been confused by before, where I thought this just had 1 sword and 1 shield, which it does, but this is a keyword called self-shield. So the little shield in the background represents the keyword self-shield. And it shields the person who's using self-shield. So any self-shield or self-heal items only apply to the person using them. So I can't use Brigand to block Lost, for example, if I rolled that on Brigand. And then these are just basic damage sides. Keywords on Buckle, we've got heavy, which means the target must have the most HP. This is a pretty annoying keyword because you like to focus down the weak enemies, and heavy prevents you from doing that. This is the keyword pristine. I would say this is in the 2nd tier of commonality for keywords. It's not super rare, but it's not super common. But what it means is it does twice as much if the hero using it is at full health. So normally it does 2, but right now it's doing 4 because Buckle's at full health. And this is a basic shield side. Acolyte. So cleave is in the most common tier of common keywords. So cleave shows up all the time. And it means it also targets the sides of the target. So you can have Cleave heal like this, where Acolyte could heal multiple people on her team, or you can have Cleave damage, which I think is a little bit more common. Enemies can have Cleave too, so Wolf here could have been attacking 3 enemies at once instead of just a single target. That's Cleave. This heart with the big thing around it, this is called Vitality. This is probably a rare keyword just because it's only on the healer and only on some of them. Some of the different classes of healers that you can be offered. It just means that you also give them max HP in addition to healing them. So even though Lost only has 3 max HP, and he's being overkilled by 1, I could save him by giving him 2 max HP and healing him, so he'd go up to 5 health. And that's permanent for the rest of the fight. And then this is a basic mana gain side, which is one of the most important elements of the game. We can talk about spells now. So you get a spell from your red hero and your blue hero. They each have a specific spell equipped to them depending on... It just depends on which one you choose. So if you ever choose Vampire, Vampire always has this spell. So evaluating how good Vampire is has to do with how good this spell is, because this spell always comes attached to Vampire. So Acolyte always comes with the spell Restore. Initiate always comes with the spell Gather. These spells can get pretty complex in what they do to the game, but the simple explanation here is that spells cost mana. You can only gain mana from mana sides or items. There's no like passive mana per turn or anything like that. Some items give you benefits like that, passive mana per turn, but you have to earn it. So it either comes from an item or a hero. So if I ever want to burst, I need to get the mana to cast burst from somewhere. And the mage tends to be very, the blue class tends to be very energy or mana focused, whereas the red, it depends. There are some mana gain sides on some orange and gray characters. I don't think there are any mana gain sides on any yellow characters. Burst is the freebie spell that you get always, which means mana can always convert to 2 damage or 2 shield, which is a pretty big deal. So Burst tends to be one of the most mechanic defining game specific things to know. I probably won't play through a whole game. Maybe I'll play to like the first boss just to explain a few more mechanics. I don't want this video to be super long, me not playing. I haven't played anything yet here. When you click on a dice, you keep it. You get a total of 2 rerolls, which means you get to see any one die. You can see at most 3 different times. The initial roll and then the 2 rerolls after it. So if I want to see a specific side, on any turn I have, or let's say there are 3 sides that I care about. Let's say only the cruel sides are good for me. If I want to see a specific cruel side, which I see half the time on a particular die, that means on any given turn I have a 7 in 8 chance of seeing one of those 3 sides, because I'd have to miss the 50-50 3 times in a row to not see the side. So that's kind of like the basic randomness element to this game that there is to think about most often. So we're just going to reroll this blank side because it doesn't do anything. I got a dodge, so the Lost can just save herself by dodging. And then the Brigand, I have to attack with the Heavy first, because once I attack with the Exert, then the Heavy has to target the other person, which I don't want to do because I want to potentially finish off this Wolf. But I don't want to finish off that Wolf because he's the one attacking the Lost who's dodging. So we want to attack the other Wolf, gain some mana. The Wolf is dead. This Wolf does nothing. And now we try and kill him next turn, but the Brigand is exerted. And we rolled a bunch of X's, shields and heals that don't do anything. So we're going to re-roll. For this, we'll keep that mana. Oh, I didn't finish explaining all the keywords, so let's keep going through the keywords, because one of them just came up. We talked about Vitality, we talked about Cleave, we haven't talked about the Initiate keywords. No, I don't want to keep you. The Initiate keywords, right here we see Single Use. This is probably one of the most common keywords. It's on a bunch of dice sides, but it's also on a bunch of items, and sometimes enemies inflict Single Use upon you. So Single Use is pretty common. It means after you use it, future time, like now that you can see right here, this side is blank, but it's a different looking X because it's been crossed off manually, because it used to be a single use mana side, and now it's a blank. So that's That's a really common keyword, single use. It looks different on different effects. That's one of the frustrating things about single use, is it doesn't look the same on every attack type. So this is what single use looks like on a mage, on mana gain rather, on mana gain. But single use on an attack looks like something else. Oh, there's only one single use attack that doesn't have any other. No, that might not be true. It just looks different all the time, and that's kind of frustrating because it's so common. So I think it's not, no, it's not the collector, it's on Brigand, I think. Yeah, this guy right here. No, Hoarder. This is a 2 damage single use side. I don't know why, that's just what it looks like. It just looks like a stick. So that's what the damage one looks like, except on Caldera. Oh, so this one's cruel and single use. So it looks like this. So it's like, yeah, I guess cruel looks different on different attacks too. We saw what the cruel attack looks like with like the wavy sword. On this one, it's just like, I don't know, it's like a fireball, it's like a torch that Caldera is using. But this is cruel single use. And there's no good way to know that unless you've looked at this die side more than once. So that is kind of a problem with, if I go a little bit too fast on my unfair runs. Like I said, I'm just making this video like kind of in the middle of my unfair run episodes being released because, well, someone had pointed out that if you haven't played this game before, it's hard to know what's going on. Even though everything can be explained well, if you don't have a power to mouse over stuff, some of the visual cues are a little inconsistent. But once you get used to them, they're very, very handy. I do really like the design of this game. I do think it's a little frustrating that cruel and single use have inconsistent art, but whatever. So that's another example of what a single use looks like. There's a this is single use poison, so it looks like a green paintbrush, I guess. I don't know. There's some other single use, but I won't go through every single use image. It's generally this diagonal looking face. And that's what it is. So that's single use mana. Anyway, this purple, if you ever have a purpley background on a side, that's Cantrip. Cantrip is pretty common. It's either in the top tier or second tier for how common it is. It's common on certain characters, I guess. It's like common on orange and blue, and that's it. So if you want to call that tier 1 commonality or tier 2 commonality, I don't know. I'm just making these tiers up, by the way. It's not a mechanic in the game. They don't have like a higher chance of being generated. I'm just giving you an idea of how often Cantrip comes up. These sides aren't generated randomly. Like the herbalist always has these sides. This is a regen side. Apparently that's what regen looks like. The keyword regen means you heal 1 at the end of turn. She also has a single use poison side. Kind of interesting. Anyway, Cantrip, I don't think I'd said what it did. I said it has a purpley background, but what it does is it activates when it's rolling. So like while you're rolling to find the sides you want, if you ever land on a Cantrip side, you get that effect even if you don't keep the die. If you then keep the die, so you see I got this mana right here from the Cantrip effect. If I keep the die and then activate it, I also get the mana on activation. So Cantrips are pretty powerful for that reason. Whenever you do anything during your turn, you can always just wind it back and undo it. All the way back up to whenever your reroll was. You can't undo rerolls, which makes sense. We don't need this. We'll roll that again. We'll keep that. Not a great hand. Oh, but Gather is insane. So Gather, replace blank sides with 2 mana this turn. So Brigand had to roll as an X. Buckle happened to roll an X. I think Initiate happened to roll an X also. So Gather just turned them all. Yeah, Gather cost 2 mana but gave me 6 mana. So basically, this spell is like gain 4 mana. And mana just readily turns into damage if you remember with Burst. So we just win the fight now. Last keyword, growth here. This is probably medium common as a keyword. It means when you use it, it gets +1 from now on. It's a pretty slow effect. I don't rate it very highly. It seems cool. When I first was watching this game, this seemed like one of the better effects, but on the unfair difficulty, the game just goes too fast for it to be worth much. So that's a quick rundown of the keywords and stuff. You can go to the almanac to look up possible character roles and stuff like that. On floor 2, you always get to choose a character. Soldier is solid, but so is Brigand. I'm just going to take... the medic is slow. I'm just going to take the soldier because he's fast, and we're just going fast right now. I can look at these items now. I don't want to evaluate all of them right now, so let's just kind of throw some items around. Replace the right side with 0 damage skill. That seems pointless. Bonus equal to hero level. Oh, okay. So it gets better the farther you go on. Square wheel is funny, but bad. Iron helm. Add exert to all sides. Is terrible. I'm not going to equip that. Shield on turn 1 can go on the initiate. And we can keep going. So you see the archers in the back line because they're farther back from the goblin. They're going to snipe us. I can't target them unless I have ranged, which I don't. I'm going to keep this. Re-roll everything else. The mana cantrip was nice. I'll keep this mana and this mana. We're going to be greedy and roll the cruel side one more time. That's why we're greedy, because it pays off. Although it looks like you're just getting obliterated, sir. Oh, but okay, so Burst Redly also turns into health, so I can just block there. He survives. Oh, goblins run away when they're the last one alive. That's what this little white flag is, but it's impossible to make them the last one alive because the archer has back row. So I just have to kill everyone the normal way, but I'm able to do so really fast here. Let's look at an item. Seedling is fine. Seedling is actually surprisingly good for a tier 1 item. Put it on the Acolyte. Lots of archers here. The rat's protecting them all, but once we get through the rat, suddenly they're not so protected. Let's re-roll everything. We can just keep everything, I guess. This kills the rat. No one's dying, so we should just save the energy. We could kill an archer now. I guess we should kill an archer now because they're dealing a bunch of damage. Let's kill this archer so Buckle doesn't get his smack. I was gonna say we can save it so that way we can use it to get the the gather next turn without having to roll additional mana. But I decided to just use it. Really looking for a sword from the soldier. We got it. We also got the cantrip mana from the initiate, which means we're able to afford a burst, and Lost finishes off that last one. We can upgrade to Fiend is okay. Let's go Disciple. Disciple's not super fast, but they've got these 2 mana sides, which I really like. So Alpha's a powerful enemy. Is this a boss? I'm not sure. Let's keep this. Let's re-roll this. Let's re-roll this. Let's re-roll this. Re-rolling everything. That's good. That's good. We can re-roll this. I'm gonna re-roll this as well because I want the 3 sword, which I got. Okay, Heavy has to target the highest health guy. We're trying to focus down the Alpha because he is scary as heck. Replace blank sides with heal and shield through this turn. So this is kind of like Gather, but instead of replacing with mana, you replace with some health bonuses. Not that good. Disciple has a pretty weak spell overall. You can only hold 3 mana between turns, so right here I do need to spend mana on some things, just so I don't lose it. But if you can save it, you generally want to save it. So Alpha summoned a wolf. It's pretty bad when he summons a wolf, but he's going to be dead this turn, so it's not the end of the world. These are all good sides. We'll keep all of them. That's a great side. Kills outright. Let's Heavy and do this. Burst him down. Cool, and we'll kill the wolf next turn. So yeah, you're just supposed to get stronger apparently with items and level ups. It's a hard game on Unfair, but apparently it's possible to win just by getting 1 item and 1 level up. 1 item or level up per level. Okay, yeah, that was a boss fight. So this little interface down here in between rounds just kind of shows you your progress through the dungeon. So these first 3 levels are pretty easy, and then you fight like the forest boss or whatever. Then you've got 3 more more difficult levels, and then you fight the gray boss, whatever. Then there's yellow, and then there's red. And then actually, I guess there's got to be 1 more, because if there are 4 at a time, you go to level 20, so there are 5 bosses. closing with the final boss. I think that's a good place to wrap, though. I guess one more thing about items. So there's like a whole item tier list from 0 to 10, pretty much. Mostly 0 to 9. I haven't unlocked tier 10 items because you don't normally get offered them. And like the higher tier the item, the better it is. You get offered higher and higher tiers the farther you go. It's not entirely random. Like on floor, we just finished floor 4, so we're coming into floor 5. At the beginning of floor 5, you're always offered a tier 2 item or a choice to get something random. So the random choice can either be 2 of an item that's a tier lower, or you have a 50% chance to get an item from a tier higher or a tier lower, or you can just re-roll for a different item of that same tier. So there are a lot of different ways the item rolling works, but generally, like the farther you go, the better the items are. The early game items are pretty like marginal benefits, and some of the late game items are just totally run defining. There are some pretty sick combos with early game items. So there's like side swapping items. I was trying to look for one, but I don't see it. I guess you don't get a lot of side swapping items until later. Can I find one here quickly? My eye is not catching a side swapping item. But there are some items that's like swap your left side and your right side, which seems pointless. So if like you get that at tier 2, it's like it doesn't do anything. But I would like to see one specifically so I can tell you what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, swap the top side with the rightmost side. There you go. And then you also get +2 stored mana. But even without the stored mana, you might be like, well, this isn't super useful. Like, it doesn't make a big difference. There are some items that have effects like this that don't even give you the stored mana benefit. They're just like, hey, swap these 2 sides. And you might wonder, like, if you're just rolling a 6-sided dice, why does it matter if you swap the sides? And the reason is because, like, later on, you can have really specific items that are like, hey, these 3 portions of your die get this benefit. So if you swapped your rightmost side to your top side, and your top side was something really good, that could be a really big combo with Bullseye and this random tier 2 item that's swapping your sides. So that's something kind of tricky to pay attention to with item power. Yes, items just get more powerful as you get farther, but they also can have some pretty sweet synergies. However, you can only have 2 items equipped to a hero at a time. I can't equip a 3rd item. It's just spots 1 and spot 2. So that's how items work. That's how they buff your characters. I'll probably just wrap here, but I appreciate you tuning in for my little explanation. I hope this was helpful. Definitely leave a comment if you want to see something else with this video series. I'm pretty pumped about this game right now. Like I said, it's been out for a while. I put that in my description of my first few videos. It's been out for a while, but I just kind of slept on it for a long time, and now I saw it somewhere. I don't know what got me back into it. I saw it somewhere. I'm like, and I was looking for like YouTube videos to watch about it, and there weren't any from like the last 10 months. And so I'm like, well, there's a gap to be filled in the video and on YouTube. I can fill that gap by making my own videos, like modern playthroughs of Slice and Dice. It turns out it just fell off because it's not very popular. I'm doing this mostly for me. If I really wanted to get the most views, this is not the game to do it with, because most people don't know what this game is. But hopefully this video was helpful for you if you don't know what this game is and you are interested like me. This game's only $7. You can buy it and play it yourself. It's way fun. I highly recommend it. It's also on Android. I don't have an Android. I only have an iPhone, so I can't play it on my phone, but that's probably a good thing for me because I might waste way too much of my time playing this game on my phone if I had access to it. Man, there's a lot more stuff to say about this game between like the different modes and something cute the developers do. Like you hit the save button and the developers just like give you these little conversations with you. The game saves automatically after each action. This button does nothing. It's just a button they put here that does nothing. So when you click on it, they can tell you that it's like, don't worry, we're saving your game. It's totally okay. We got all these different modes. I think this game is very cute. I really am impressed with the designers. I like a lot what they chose to do and what they didn't choose to do. And there's no music to this game. That might be something you have noticed quickly. Sometimes I'll play music in the background. That's just random classical music because I don't want to get DMCA'd or whatever, but there's no music, and that was a choice by the devs. They focused on other things. And then you have like achievements. So you have all these achievements. There are 131 achievements that unlock things. So I actually am not playing with like the full game. It wasn't until recently that I had the ability to see this item offered to me. So you can see that like actually the relative difficulty of the game does technically depend on how much you've unlocked. You can also unlock enemies and heroes. So if there's a hero that's like really bad, if like this is Ninja. Let's say Ninja's really bad. The game is much easier if you never unlock him. So I haven't yet stabilized on the difficulty of this game because I don't have all the achievements. I will say I'm sure the game gets harder the more you unlock, but there's maybe some like really useful things to unlock as far as items or heroes go. You can also unlock enemies. Yeah, unlocks a monster, Thorns. This is a pretty hard enemy, so the game got much harder once I unlocked Thorns. So it's kind of an interesting thing that the game does. They have achievements, and then they have secrets, which are like achievements that don't unlock anything, and they don't tell you how many there are. And they also give you hints as to how to get more upcoming achievements. This little conversation here at the end of this video is not particularly useful if you're trying to watch my videos, because none of this has to do with the actual gameplay elements. This is just me rambling about some of the neat specific features of this game. But none of the achievement stuff really affects any of the stuff you'll see me making decisions on when within the unfair run itself. I'm really trying to win these unfair runs, so all of my discussion and decision making is really centered around that focus, and I think I've covered everything that you really need to cover in relation to that focus. I guess there's one more thing I can do, because this is something that I will have in mind throughout my unfair runs, if you choose to stick around and watch them, is the boss pool is set, particularly the final boss pool. I haven't unlocked some of them apparently, but this is one possible final boss and this is another. There's a third possible final boss that I haven't unlocked. So when I'm playing unfair, like my decisions have to play around who my final boss is. I don't know a bunch about these final bosses. I mean, I do. It's right here. This is all you need to know about them. Well, Dragon spawns with like other team members though. So like I don't have the whole boss fight memorized, but you can still see like generally what is this boss going to be doing against you. They can summon enemies, they can petrify you. Oh yeah, I guess that's one more. Oh, there's a whole thing here. Maybe I should have started here. That's funny. No, this is not a good place to go to learn the mechanics because some of these are super rare. Alliteration exists on very, very few places. So it's not really useful for me to like spend my time telling you about every single keyword here because like in a typical run, I'm never going to talk about alliteration. It's never going to come up. So I like the way that I approached this video. But there was one more. I wanted to talk about not the mod. These are like the curse modifiers you can choose from. That's pretty cool. Now I want to talk about some of the things that enemies can inflict upon you, like petrify. I guess that's mixed in here with the keywords. So petrify is not a keyword that you would have on your die. It's something an enemy would do to you. There is an order to how your sides get petrified, by the way, which is kind of cool. But petrify means that your sides become, when it says turn to stone, it means when you roll them, they're now X's, even if there's something else underneath them. You can cleanse. Cleanse is another keyword, which just cancels out debuffs. Where's cleanse? There's cleanse. It's usually with these horizontal white bars on your side faces. Oh, there's some spell keyword too. Spell keywords also. Items, I wish there was a compendium of the spells. But there's not. But one of them is deplete. Costs 1 more mana each time you cast it. One of them is like single use. You only get to use that spell once per fight. Stuff like that. So those come up from time to time. Initiate, doesn't have a keyword on this spell. No. Oh, this one. So cooldown means you can only use it once each turn. And then there are some that's like only once per fight, stuff like that. So there are some spell keywords. Okay, this has gone on for, I'm sure, plenty of time. You've probably gotten bored and left, but thank you for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. I don't know if I'm going to pin this on my channel, but I'll definitely post it. So I'll catch you in the next video.